All right, let's take a minute to talk about Adlerian therapy. I have always been partial to Adlerian therapy. I don't know what it is about Alfred Adler and this theoretical approach, but it's always kind of spoken to me. Not that it has to for you. That's the beauty of theoretical orientations. They can pull people in different ways. So there are a number of notable things about Alfred Adler. For one, he studied under Freud for a very short amount of time, but nevertheless did study under Freud. And fun fact, you can go visit like Sigmund Freud's old office and Alfred Adler's old office. And I had a student that did that and brought me some chocolate. It was very good. But they are relatively popular in their home country of Austria. So when it comes to Adlerian therapy, we're really kind of taking a shift from psychoanalytic therapy. And Alfred Adler coined individual psychotherapy as like a holistic approach to providing counseling and therapy services. So it really is much different than psychoanalysis. And Adler was one of the first, if not the first, theorists to incorporate kind of these basic tenets of multiculturalism and social justice. So he really emphasized that a person is influenced by outside forces and that it's not all about just the unconscious self. That I think was just a big shift in terms of what the world at that time was understanding about psychotherapy in general. And he was kind of like he was very liberal in his thinking in general. And so, that played a role in how he kind of shaped this theoretical orientation. So he really took into account, and Adlerian therapy does take into account, the client's perspective, right? So they are bringing their life experiences to us as counselors in Adlerian theory. And we are going with that. We are not trying to reshape it. We are understanding that that's kind of the phenomenological approach, is that people have their own lived experiences. And that really is in line with so many other of the more contemporary theoretical approaches, feminist approaches, multicultural approaches to counseling, all emphasize that the lived experience of our clients. Adler did not, with Adlerian theory, the counselor is not as much in that authoritarian role. They're not the expert of somebody's life. They're helping individual to make changes through different phases of therapy. You'll hear about Adlerian family therapy when you get into your couples and family class. And so there are a lot of because Adler wasn't just focused on solely on, it was individual therapy, obviously, individual psychotherapy, but individual psychology, but part of that was addressing all of the outside forces and especially families. And so Adler, when you hear about birth order and, typical oldest child acting, in one way versus middle child, younger child, only children, all of that came from Adlerian therapy and Alfred Adler. I think that probably is one of those reasons why it kind of speaks to me, because I can see all those traits and qualities in myself and my other two siblings. So, but one of the limitations with that now, and looking at the family constellation and really addressing roles and family structure, is that families look a lot different now than they did when Alfred Adler proposed the family constellation. And so there have to be adaptations in Adlerian therapy for it to apply in our world today. And so I wanted to show you, and hopefully the video works, of course, with this subpart of the module, the Adlerian play therapy video. So I don't know how many of you might be interested in working with children. If you are, a lot, play therapy and children go hand in hand. So hopefully this would be a useful video to show how Adlerian therapy can be applied in terms of play therapy. So there's a whole kind of theoretical orientation around Adlerian family therapy as well. It's not the last time you're going to hear about Adler. In terms of evidence-based practices, obviously that's something I'm going to be saying a lot for the rest of the semester, but because of the large number of techniques, so if you're looking at like slide 16 that I've provided for you guys, and there's tons of techniques within Adlerian therapy, and they differ a lot. Silence, humor, storytelling, confrontation, giving homework. So when you have all of these techniques wrapped into one theoretical orientation, it becomes difficult to measure change and the effect of therapy on a person's change, on a client, on the change within a client, and whether or not it actually came from some of the techniques used or if it was just by chance. So, that's not to say Adlerian therapy has been around for quite some time, and so I think that adds to the validity of this particular theoretical approach. But there are a lot of techniques that Adlerian therapists can use and do use. And so some of those, whenever I talk about silence, that's something that's not just for Adlerian folks, right? For people that practice from an Adlerian perspective, we look at silence as a benefit in a lot of different theoretical orientations. We assign homework when we're doing CBT. That's like all we do with CBT is assign homework. But with a lot of other theories, we have similar tools and techniques. So I think that you'll see just kind of consistently as we continue to learn about different orientations. And Adlerian therapy, in comparison to psychoanalytic therapy, can be much shorter, and there's a brief version of it as well. I think that's what I'm going to leave you guys with Adlerian therapy and the video. Oh, and just as I did with the psychoanalytic therapy and theoretical orientation, I provided some websites for you. So if you're interested in learning more about that, if it's an orientation that, it's kind of drawing your attention more than others, I do encourage you to check out the North American Society of Adlerian Psychology to figure out what supports are there for those that are practicing Adlerian therapy in the United States. So with that, I will leave you guys to it. The discussion board this week, I'm forgetting what I even did with the discussion board. Yes. Okay. So it looks a little bit longer. Module 3 discussion, you'll see it repeated maybe another 1 or 2 times because, again, as I mentioned in my previous lecture, it's not that I'm trying to teach you guys to a test, but I think that outlining certain things like key concepts, the therapeutic process, and the applications, the actual techniques and procedures that are used in different theoretical approaches, that will be useful for you when it comes time to study for exams. So not the most exciting discussion board this week, but hopefully you guys pick out different areas of either psychoanalytic or Adlerian therapy, so you don't have to do both. You can pick one of the two, and then just picking one question from each of the 3 areas that I have available for you guys. So there's a lot of different options to choose. So hopefully everybody kind of gets a variety of answers in there, and then you guys can go back to that as you're building your study guides for your exams later on. So I will touch base with you whenever you all get into this discussions.